Lazy Booking back. Another special episode here on A2D Radio. We got a special guest, this man over here, and we're going to intro him on the other side. But like, subscribe, follow. Let's roll that tape.
Oh my God! I'm embarrassed! You're flying!
Welcome in. It's almost time.
All right, guys. Back again. It's an exciting episode today. We have this man over here, Mr. Tyler Breeze.
Hello.
Joining us today here on Lazy Booking. We're going to give some love to our sponsor, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find him in Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey, physical locations, or you can find him on the web with no appointment necessary at specializedphysicaltherapy.com. So if you have any kind of special needs that you need to get taken care of, please check out our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal. Guys, another special episode. We had Rich Swan the other day with Slammiversary being today this weekend. We have another very charismatic guest on here who recently made his return to in-ring last weekend, becoming a champion against Matt Cross. This is one Mr. Tyler Breeze. How are you today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Good, man. Good. We're excited. A lot of people are excited that you're joining us. So appreciate the time, and we're going to talk about a lot of fun stuff between your career, up, down, and your return. So very
cool.
But our opening topic, which we always have an agree to disagree topic here, the NXT Black and Gold era was the best wrestling product of the last decade. Agree or disagree? And I'm sure people ask you something in this realm all the time. What a time it was when you talk about the talent you guys had there, the shows, the storylines. I mean, those NXT takeovers were next level special. Tyler, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to lean more towards the agree on that one. And you know, obviously I can be a little bit biased because I was there and I was a part of it, but the atmosphere at the time and like the card top to bottom was just full of like young, hungry people who were kind of like finding themselves and finding the groove that they were hitting, all at the exact same time. And it kind of just came together to be something really, really cool. And I think, I mean, I would put that, you know, some of those takeovers and that, again, that atmosphere up against anything else. Just in terms of like people were there, the people that showed up, like they wanted to be there and they wanted to be entertained. And then the talent that was there, they weren't really thinking about themselves. Like we all were, but we were very much a part of like, let's make this show the coolest show that's around. And so like we were all on the same page, which is very, very difficult to find. Because normally, you know, people have their own agendas, or once, you know, more money comes into it, then people are worried about certain things or how they're booked or all that other stuff. So I think across the board, everybody was just like, this is where you want to be and this is where you want to be a part of. And if you're not on the card that day, like you're glued to the curtain watching the whole thing because you love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I was a part of a couple of those takeover crowds, particularly in Brooklyn, which those shows in Brooklyn were next level. And you're talking about the in-ring product, the way you guys worked those shows, and the crowds that showed up for those. I mean, that was some of the best crowds that you could find anywhere at any time.
Yeah, and you got to think about it too, right? Like we're supposed to be the developmental, you know, the people who haven't quite hit their stride yet, the people who are in a couple of years, maybe they'll be stars. But that group of people who are still in the infancy of who they are, have filled an arena with 15,000 people, the exact same people that'll be there the next day for SummerSlam, and they're going nuts. So it's like, we must be doing something right. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, absolutely. And it, for all intents and purposes, and back then, you know, particularly, you know, this show started in 2016, 2017, joining A2D Radio. We had frequently had conversations where the quote unquote developmental of NXT for us, it was a third brand long before it got recognized as a third brand.
Yeah, definitely. Again, like the fans, and again, you know, there's a million ways to kind of chop it up and dice it. And some people will say, well, you know, they didn't make as much money, or they didn't draw as many people, or the ratings were whatever. I get it. But at the same time, like, again, to put out a product that people genuinely enjoy enough, and they really just, can't get enough of it is when you strike gold, it's kind of tough to, say that that's not working or the place to be. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I definitely think in terms of AEW coming along and all these other rises, when you talk about Impact, even a company that got pushed because of like through COVID and all, had to be creative, which a lot of WWE and AEW have taken elements from Impact of things that they've done. I feel like NXT had pushed the envelope so much at that time, and there was so much talent. And again, it was almost the you have to be a big guy in a certain size type of a mentality until NXT came along, and with Hunter down there with you guys, pulled a lot of the talent from the independent scene and said these guys deserve to have a spotlight, and allowed you guys to do that, and you did. You all hit the ground running with it. It was amazing.
Well, and that's it. I always kind of go back and forth on that to the, I know back in like the day, it was like, Hogan and Warrior and all these guys were monsters and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was ever I remember I asked Arn Anderson this. I was like, what's the deal, man? Like, am I too small? Am I whatever? And he said, no. He goes, the whole size thing died when Rey Mysterio became champion. And that was back in like the early 2000s. So it's like, it was, I don't know if it was so much about, big guys, small guys kind of thing, or if it was more just about, again, egos being put to the side and getting just a good group of people that were kind of wanting the ship to go, you know what I mean? It's kind of in that same area where, again, a little different once you get to like, money and ego and stuff like that. But if you think back to like late 90s, early 2000s, when in the same show or on the same, era or whatever, you have stars like Austin and The Rock and all these guys at the same time, like striking at the same time. That's nuts. You know what I mean? Because then later on, obviously, as they dropped off, you have a John Cena, but it's very rare that you get 3 John Cenas at the same time, or 4, you know what I mean? So it's a combo of a couple different things.
Yeah, we were talking to Rich Swann the other day, and then actually kind of brought up that, like, when you look at what OVW was back then, right? When you had, like, not just John Cena, but you had Batista, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, all in one class down there.
Yeah.
And then around that time when Rich came up, too, there were so many guys going through at that point. Through CZW was a company that we brought up. When you looked at him, Adam Cole, Kevin Steen at one point was running. All these guys were running through at the same time, and it became almost like a breeding ground. It's true. It's absolutely true what you said, and I do feel like NXT just started hitting the ground. Like when everybody got together, you guys just hit the ground and ran with it, and it became. I mean, to this day, people miss it. People go back and watch it on the network all the time. They miss it. Like Breaking Ground in those shows. That was literally breaking ground. It was something very special.
Well, they tried with Breaking Ground. It was an idea, but in the end, it was a reality show, and reality shows are, well, I mean, some people love them. I've actually been talked to a bunch about Breaking Ground, and I think people viewed it a lot differently than I viewed it, being on it, where I'm not really a big reality show guy whatsoever. Yeah. So especially seeing behind the curtain of what it is, I'm like, okay. But, in terms of, again, like what it was, what the OG NXT was, like once we kind of started hitting with our crew, it's tough to replicate. You know what I mean? It was, like you said, show aside, it was breaking ground. It was kind of like a new perspective on things, especially again, compared to like Deep South or OVW, or even FCW for that matter, because I was a part of that. But NXT was very, very different. And I think it was just kind of I hate to say the alternative, because everybody likes to say the alternative, but I think it was just fresh, and it was, again, not a different style, not a different whatever. It was just the right group of people at the right time.
I totally agree with you on that. You came up and you worked with, obviously you were trained by one of the legends, Lance Storm in GCW. What was that experience like, coming up with Lance? We hear a lot of stories with him as a trainer, great things. Yeah, he's done such a great job, and you, especially now being on the other side and assisting with the training process, what was that like for you, kind of cutting your teeth with Lance?
It was kind of everything it needed to be. It was I think at the time I was just graduating high school and I was looking to be a wrestler. So the only option really around me was like OVW. So I was talking to people in OVW. I was going to have to save up some money because I couldn't work in the States. I was in Canada. So I was going to have to kind of save up a bunch and go down there. And then I didn't really know what to expect and I couldn't work and do whatever. So kind of just like, would have been really lost if I would have went that route. And then all of a sudden I found Lance's, who was literally a province over. So I could just drive there. I could work. I could do everything else. And it was Lance Storm, who, again, I grew up watching. I knew all of his stuff. I went, man, he's a good guy to learn from. So when I went there, and again, I guess, now that I'm a trainer at our school and stuff like that, I'm very, very similar in a lot of aspects to Lance, where I respect technique a lot. I really, really love footwork and technique and the actual technical part of what we do. And I'm a real kind of stickler for that, to where I go, man, just clean this up a little bit. And this should be like this. And this should be like that. Where again, a lot of wrestling is variation and a lot of, opinions and stuff like that. But technique for the most part doesn't really change, because again, it's a matter of keeping somebody safe or not. And Lance's big thing was technique never changes, because you need to be safe. You need to be safe for yourself. You need to protect yourself, and you need to protect the person you're with. So he taught me everything right. And it kind of just, I guess, ingrained in me, not to brush over the basics or the simple, type of things to get to the, cooler, crazier, more things, especially when you're a young kid. You look at stuff and you're like, man, I want to do this and I want to do that and I can do this and I want to do this. Until you start actually doing it. And then you go, yeah, I'm an idiot. I should probably just stick to this and this and this. If I do it really well, my body's going to last a lot longer. I'm going to make a lot more money, and it's going to be a lot better than this other thing that really makes no sense, but I just saw someone do it, so I want to do it. You know what I mean? So he was very, very good in terms of, again, getting me started, getting, everything trained properly. And then on top of that, he got into a little bit of money management and really kind of opened my eyes to, do your taxes and invest in yourself, and what happens when that call comes that you don't have a job anymore. Because again, it happens to everybody, unless you're one of those select few that can kind of fade off into the sunset with your millions or whatever. But aside from that, everybody's gonna lose their job at some point. So are you prepared for that or what? And it kind of got me started thinking that, even as I got hired, that at some point the gravy train's gonna end. So you got to be prepared for it. And then even, from there, he got me my first booking, and he was a part of me getting my tryouts, and a part of just making connections, which are massive in the business. So him being a friend with Norman Smiley and Billy Kidman and Edge and all these guys. It's just kind of one of those things where, again, it's so funny. It's like full circle, where if you mentioned hey, yeah, I was trained by Lance, there's a certain expectation from you, because if they know him, they know his work, and they know that if he put a stamp on you, you must be damn good. And now it's kind of the same with myself and Spears, where if we've made a lot of good connections, we have a lot of friends, we have a lot of all this stuff still in the business. So if you hear that we trained you, it's there's a certain expectation there. And it's so funny that, again, it's full circle, because it all started with him teaching me that, and now I'm teaching the next person that. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you have a school obviously with Sean Spears, who's in AEW, Ty Dillon, everybody knows. And we're going to definitely dive deeper into that as we move along here, because I definitely want to talk about that. And you also, I believe, help out at the Performance Center too, don't you?
Yeah, from time to time. I've done some guest coaching stuff there. For whatever reason, people are they're convinced that I work at the PC, but I do not. I just do guest coaching here and there. But yeah, I got a great relationship with WWE, with all the coaches, with everybody that I went through. And, like I said, connections are huge.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that too, because, when you look at Lance Storm and you think about, particularly Canadian, the style that you're talking about with training, right? It's very reminiscent of when you hear Bret Hart talk about pro wrestling and, taking care of the guy next to you, learning things to do it the right way, the safe way, not going outside of just to do something to do it. Mm-hmm. And then again, Lance is a super smart guy. I love hearing him talk anytime he talks about pro wrestling. And it's kind of it's like the pro athlete thing that they talk about, where in terms of things like the NBA and stuff, where they talk about, there's only a window. What are you doing with your money and being smart? And some guys take advantage of it. Some run the road really hard and yeah, there's not a whole lot left at the end of the road.
That's right.
So it's good to hear that people are looking not just at the in-ring, but trying to keep people smartened up to there's going to be stuff after this, and you're going to need stuff. You know?
Yeah, you got a lot of life to live. You know what I mean? Wrestling is just a short portion of it, and it can help create a lot of freedom and some opportunities. But yeah, there's a whole lot more to people and life than just wrestling.
Oh God, absolutely. So you run that time. You have your time in ECCW. Eventually, you do end up in Florida Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what that transition was like coming to the United States and moving to Florida in order to kind of pursue the dream at WWE at that point.
Scary as hell. Super, super scary. So I'd only been wrestling for maybe 3 years at that point. I trained with Lance in January 2007. I got hired in like June or July of 2010. Different world. Like I kind of did the independent scene for a while, and I went, all right, you know what? It all feels like the same. I feel like it's all the same out here. Like this isn't really going to change. This is just what it is. So I'm going to go to the source where I want to work, and I want them to tell me like, hey man, you need to get bigger, or you need to work on this, or you need a better look, or you need whatever it needs. Like whatever you tell me to do, I'll do, because this is my only option here. I want to work for WWE. And so when they finally hired me, it was like, all right, what do I do now? You know what I mean? I'd never even really been to the States a lot. I'd never even really been on planes. Like I was a very, very much a small town guy. Like I grew up in a tiny little town. I hate big cities. Like I'm not a big, I'm not a big New York guy. I'm not a big LA guy. Like those cities are massive to me. They're so intimidating. It's just like, it's big. So even moving to Calgary was huge for me. That was a big city. So getting the call to like, okay, now you're moving to a different country. And, so talking to the WWE lawyers, and they had to make a whole petition to get me a visa. And like, this is all foreign ground to me. And again, I'm like 22. So then actually coming down, funny enough, I was like, I have no clue, like, where do I live? Where do I stay? What can I do? I was like, oh, you know what? Luckily, I have great Canadian credit. Like I built up my credit nicely. I should be all right. Well, no, the US doesn't recognize Canadian credit. So my credit is 0, which as I found out is worse than having bad credit. Yeah. So like you're starting at 0. So like, luckily someone before me, they were like, hey, you got to go to the bank. You got to get this prepaid card. You got to do whatever. And then luckily a friend of mine, Jinder Mahal, was actually who I wrestled with. He got hired like 6 months before me. So I ended up living on a blow-up mattress in his living room. Wow. And so I literally came down from Canada with one suitcase. I lived on a blow-up mattress in his living room that I'd fall asleep and it would be blown up. And then I'd wake up in the morning and it would be flat on the floor. And it was just like, okay, this is a different world, man. And I remember even going in for my first week, and everybody was massive. They were a monster. And I remember telling Lance, I was just like, I don't know if I got it. I don't know if I can cut it here. Like, these guys are massive. They're going to kill me. And he went, they hired you for a reason. Like, just, you'll see what's what. He's like, just, you're good, man. Don't get intimidated by this stuff. Do what you do. And again, that's why you're there. So I went, okay. And it took a while to kind of figure that out of like what he was talking about. Because, it's tough when you get hired for your dream job. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're trying so hard. And even to the point where like my coach, Norman, was like, you care too much. And I said, what do you mean? I said, how can I not care? Like, this is all I've ever wanted to do. And he goes, you'll understand what I mean in a while. And it was just, I was trying so hard that like everything they were trying to teach me was just bouncing off of me because I wasn't listening, because I was just freaking out. And just a very different transition from being a wrestler on the independents to being a TV wrestler, which is a whole different aspect. And it's not about the moves you're doing. It's not about all that stuff. It's about how can you be a marketable character so that people care what you're doing in the ring, and then you can do whatever you want. But figuring that part out was very, very difficult. And FCW at the time was a whole different animal than NXT. It was kind of on an island on its own. Every now and then we'd get like somebody come down and we'd get reminded that like, oh yeah, we're a part of WWE. But before that, it's like we're in a warehouse in Florida just doing these drills, and like, what is happening? Like, this is just Groundhog's Day of like, I don't know, man. And you're watching people get fired like every little bit, and some people get called up, some people don't. You're going, this is a lot. You know what I mean? So it's very overwhelming for a young kid who has no clue what he's doing. He just wants to wrestle. So very, very, very intimidating at the beginning. And again, there's no real like cheat sheet for it or formula. You just kind of figure it out as you go. And the big thing that saved me several times was having connections and finding out what's going on in those meetings that you're never a part of and what they actually think of you and what they want from you. Cause you just never find that out until again, somebody tells you and you go, well, what the hell? Why didn't anybody tell me that? And they just go, they just never will. It's just how it is, man.
Yeah. And yeah, when you talk about that too, right? So you were there and you kind of spun your wheels a little bit. You had a couple different characters and this and that. And so, if you tell us the story, I know there's a story behind the development of the Tyler Breeze character, which obviously ended up being, that was the home run for you here. And it was very unique and so current with even just the little iterations of the selfie stick and everything like that. And the entrance portraying that up on the big screen. Can you talk about that whole process of developing this Tyler Breeze character?
Yeah, so that was that was kind of a mixture of people and things. So the first little bit was, again, I was Mike Dalton. I was just kind of a nameless, faceless young kid who could do some drop kicks. And it was, all right, cool. I can put you with whoever, but we really don't care about you.
Right.
And so finally, again, it was through connections that I found out, I was on the chopping block to get fired. And then they put me with Cesaro, Claudio's first match in FCW. It was his debut. So they were like, hey, we got to make him look good. I went, all right, cool. So never met Claudio, just knew, I knew of him from the indies and whatever. He ended up in that match throwing me up in the air and giving me a big uppercut. And it was literally, I found out after maybe a week or two that I was now off of the firing list. But it was because of that. It was because of that he hit me with his uppercut and I made it look really well. And they went, hold on, let's give him another chance here. There might be something here. And I went, what the hell? That's what say. Okay. All right. So then all of a sudden we start running that one. I kind of run to the end of the line again, where it's like, all right, this kid, aside from being able to bump and sell, there's nothing to him. There's no substance. And so that was when they started thinking about NXT, and they wanted to see if NXT was a possibility to film at Full Sail University. And we had kind of like a tester show. And I ended up working with one of my friends who I think he goes by Bram now, or maybe even just Thomas Latimer. But he was Tom Latimer anyway. He was a part of the original Ascension, and he was a good buddy of mine in FCW. And I ended up being, the other guy in his match for this tester show at NXT. And he was just kind of supposed to eat me up and do his thing. And, Ascension was supposed to be up and out of there. And since he was my buddy, he was like, let's show him what you can do too, man. Let's have a good match. And I said, okay. So we end up having this match, and Triple H is sitting there watching, and he looks over at Dusty and he goes, who the hell is this? And why have I not seen him yet? And all of a sudden I'm off the firing list again. And I went, oh my God, what is happening, man? I'm just like a cockroach. You just can't get rid of me. And so then finally, again, we kind of spin our wheels again and again and again. And I go, what the hell's going on? And we end up getting an evaluation. And they every now and then they give you an evaluation. And I'm sitting in there with a couple different people. And they basically just start ripping me apart and going hey man, maybe we thought you were better than you were, or maybe you thought, you're better than you actually are. And, they're sitting there and they're kind of throwing these things at me. I'm going, oh man, they hate me. I'm getting fired here. This is not a good evaluation whatsoever. And so finally I go, you know what? Screw it, man. I'm going to go down swinging. If this is it, I'm going to say my piece and I'm going to go, I tried. So I start firing back and I'm going hey man, I tried. I'm pitching these characters. And they're like, no, you didn't. And I said, yes, I did. I'm I pitched these characters. You never told me anything about it. I'm trying this. I'm trying that. I think all this, I'm talking to all these people. I said, what do you want from me? I'm trying this. And I start getting fired up. And finally, the guy who's in charge of talent relations at the time, he goes, hey, let's just stop right there, before it gets out of hand. And, we'll call it there and blah, blah, blah. And I went, wow, okay. I already know I'm gone. There's no way that I'm still hired after this. And so I leave and I tell Woods, Xavier Woods is there. And he goes, how'd it go? And I said, the worst. I said, literally the worst evaluation that a human could ever get. I said, there's no way I'm here. And he goes, okay. He goes, well, if you're getting fired, he goes, let's at least try one last ditch effort here at something. I said, okay. So he goes, I think he had training or an evaluation or something. And he goes, when I get home, because or we weren't living together yet, but he was right next door or something. So he goes, when I'm done training, he goes, I'll come over, we'll film some stuff, we'll send it all in. I said, okay. So he goes, come up with 3 characters and we'll film some stuff for him. I said, okay. So I came up with like 3 characters. He comes over. We end up filming this stuff. One of them happens to be Tyler Breeze, and it's just like the original video was like a full out Zoolander, kind of an idiot. It was kind of based. I based the look and the idea off of Zoolander, but I had been helping Norman Smiley train like some actors and some models who had been coming in as like a tryout. And they'd say like these funny things because they just really don't know anything about wrestling. So they'd, oh yeah, are you gonna watch, wrestling this Friday or whatever? And they go, yeah, Friday Night Smashdown. I'm gonna watch that. And I'd go, oh, this is great. Like they have no clue, but there might be something here where I've tried so hard to be a wrestler. I said, let's go the complete opposite direction. Maybe I don't even know how to wrestle. Maybe this is just a guy who goes, you know what? Wrestling's easy. I can do it. Like the guys that I've been helping to train.
Yeah.
So it was that with kind of the main layer of Zoolander to it. And we ended up filming it. We're laughing our heads off. And I remember even me and Woods looking at each other and going, there's no way that they like this because we are having too much fun with this. And we end up making 3 videos. I sent in everything to every email that I could find, every single person that was on the WWE email. And the only one that got back to me was Dusty. And he was like, hey, man, he goes, you might have something with this model. Let's talk when you come back. And I said, okay. So I end up talking to him and he goes, tell me about this model? And I go, well, I said, maybe this, whatever. And he goes, there might be something here. Let's try this out. Let's play with this a little bit. So on our promo day, I kind of did a promo and I did it as like a know nothing, not a wrestler, just a guy talking, and people started laughing. And I went, okay, like this is a little entertaining. People are kind of liking this. So then the next time I did it, they laughed a little more. And the next time I did it, they laughed a little more. And then I started doing these, like, I started getting kind of creative with how this person interacts with other people. So I was doing these like a series of promos with Luke Harper and Rowan. And just because it was such a polar opposites, yeah. And people were loving it. It was entertaining as hell. So we went, okay, let's make the switch here from Mike Dalton to this Tyler Breeze character. And they're like, do you have an idea of what you're going to wear? And I said, yep, already got it. I already got gear ready. I'm good to go. And they said, okay, what do you want for music? And we kind of started playing with it. And the original thing was that I had a mirror and I was coming out with like a makeup kind of pocket mirror.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a little bit. And then they went, okay, like there's something here. This is definitely better than what you were doing. So then finally they started talking about it. They were going to put it on NXT. And the day of, I think we went through it. I ran through like my entrance one time, and Triple H went, I was like, the mirror just feels like 280s for me. He's like, I think we're past it. And he goes, right now, like selfies are a big thing. Like people love taking pictures of themselves with a phone. He goes, what if we use a phone? And I said, yeah, that's great. Works for me. So then we switched it to a phone that day when I did my debut against Dawkins. And then it was actually the tech guys who said, hey, you know what? We could actually, he goes, we could put that up on the Tron. And I went, oh, cool. I said, how do we do that? And he goes, oh, it's easy. It's this app, blah, blah, blah. So they show it to me and I go, yeah, I said, that's great. And then so amazing. Triple H sees it. He goes, that's awesome too. I said, cool. So then we started doing that. And then I think it was a couple shows later, they went, you know what? You're going to have a selfie stick now. And I said, okay. So like, cool, man. So like, I'm doing my thing, but we're slowly adding layers to it. And it just kind of took off. It just kind of became what it became, to where it started to click for me. And I went, oh, so I know all of this wrestling, but nobody cares about it until I make them care about the person. So now they care about Tyler Breeze, and now Tyler Breeze does the wrestling and they care about it. So everything just started clicking. And I just kind of that I've always kind of resonated with that character from like all the movies, like American Pie. I love Stifler. I think Stifler's the funniest guy. He's the entertaining one. Sometimes he looks like an idiot, but it's okay. Zoolander, same thing. There's shows that I watch for almost that like idiot character who's really funny. Yeah. And I took a lot of aspects from that and added it, like little sentences here and there of what I was going to kind of be. And again, it ended up being entertaining. And I went, man, this is actually really fun. And then the more fun that I was having, the more fun that they were liking. And so now I'm going, man, they're loving what I'm doing and I'm having fun. This is what, like, damn, I tried so hard for years in like the complete wrong direction. You know what I mean? But again, luckily I knew how to wrestle and stuff. So when it came time for a takeover to really test it, then all of a sudden you do what you've done the whole time, but you just make people care about it. And it was just, again, light bulb going off and going, okay, now I have a future in this company.
Oh yeah. I mean, that character, it was so special and innovative, and even now you've seen them take aspects when Austin Theory with the camera, and the selfies and this and that. A lot of it though is it takes us back to your character, And you were such a great worker. You've had some phenomenal matches when you talk about Jushin Liger and different opportunities. What was it like working with Liger?
Liger was the coolest dude in the world, man. So like, it was so funny. I think it was Finn, because at that point, like, I was kind of the gatekeeper to where, like, if you came to NXT, you'd work me.
Yeah.
So like, I would kind of either welcome you in or like welcome you out if you were going to Raw or SmackDown.
Very like Dolph Ziggler seems to fill that role an awful lot, or even Baron Corbin. They seem to
exactly that. To where, again, it was like, and I remember Dolph explained this to me before, or as soon as I got up to SmackDown, actually, he went, "Look, man," he goes, "this is the thing." He goes, "You can see very clearly like who their guys are," and he goes, "and you can see very clearly who their guys are not." And he goes, "You and me," he goes, "we are not their guys. We'll never be their guys." He goes, "But we will work with all their guys. And then even if we steal the ball from those guys and we go, it's me, not them," they'll still go, "Thank you." And they'll take the ball back and give it to the next guy, and you'll work with them too. And he goes, "But that's not a bad thing." He goes, "It's a great thing because you're going to work with all of the guys that they want to go on and do what they do." And he goes, "But it builds a good underground, liking to where they go, they know it, but they don't know it, to where they go, we love this guy and we love his matches and we love his character. We love his promos, but we know that they're not doing anything with them and we want it to happen." And Dolph, again, is that great example to where he just, I hate saying like, "Oh, it's organic" or whatever. It's not, it's natural. It's a natural, like almost like a yearning or like an underground feel to where it's genuine. And they go, "That's our guy, no matter what you tell us. If he loses in 2 seconds tomorrow, we're still going to be like, nope, we want him, we want him, we want him." And again, Dolph, perfect example to where when he cashes in Money in the Bank, that's a genuine reaction of our guy. You know what I mean? And Kofi, same thing. That's our guy, genuine reaction. So I was kind of in that same category where, again, Kenta comes over from Japan. I'm working him for like 6 months and showing what he can do. Finn, I worked Sammy, I worked Neville, I worked all these guys that they, again, had bigger and better plans for. But Liger was, I'd kind of, I think at that point I had probably worked almost everybody multiple times, and to the point where it's like, all right, what do you do with me now? And I think it was even just like, yeah, we're just kind of waiting for the perfect time to debut or whatever. But I went, I still want to be on takeovers and stuff. So who am I working at the next one? And I remember it was Finn who told me, and he goes, he's like, "You're working Liger." And I said, "Who's Liger?" I said, "Who's Liger? Like, not clear, like surely not, Jushin Thunder Liger." And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "He doesn't even work here." And he goes, No. He goes, "He trained me." And I went, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "They asked me to reach out and see if he'd be interested in working with you." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "And he is?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're working him at TakeOver." And I said, "All right," but I still don't believe it. And then whenever we're at NXT and they go, "All right, you're going to be working, we're going to do the reveal that you're working Liger." And I said, "Okay, so I am working Liger." And they said, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh, this is cool, man." Like, it's one of those, like, I don't know, again, it didn't feel real until it was real. So I end up getting to Brooklyn and never met him. Realistically, I have no clue what he looks like, nothing. So I sit down in catering and I'm having food, and there's a guy who sits across from me. And he's kind of like an older, Asian dude, and he's got, I think he's actually, yeah, he's kind of an older dude. You wouldn't recognize anything about him, and he's sitting across from me. And I just kind of stare at him and I go, "I think this is him. This could be him." And so I just went, "Hey man," I said, "I think we're working tonight." And he goes, "Oh yeah." And he goes, please put the whole match together. I don't really understand the style, whatever you want to do." And I went, "Okay, like that's okay, whatever you'd like." So I'm kind of like telling him the match, and he's just being so ridiculously respectful on stuff to where I went like, "Hey, maybe this," and then you go and grab my phone, and then you lay up in the corner and stuff. He goes, "Me grab your phone?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, thank you. And I went, "Thank you, dude. Like, what is it?" No. Thank you, man. And it was literally just that, like the whole time, like just nothing but respect, nothing but class. Everything in the ring was fantastic. It was fun. It went together in like 2 seconds. Everybody was happy with it. He was happy with it. And I think even when we came back, Regal was there, Hunter was there, everybody. And they came back and they just went, "Thank you so much for taking care of him," and everything else. And Liger came back after me, and he goes, and he points at me, he goes, very good. Thank you. And I just went, man, if he has zero ego, zero, nothing but respect and class, I never have an excuse ever to be mean to somebody or to be a jerk or to not be respectful or look down on them or anything. Like that's the standard of if anybody could get away with it, he could, and he didn't. That's if I don't learn something, or if I learn something from him, it's that. It's just no ego, man. Wrestling is wrestling. Just the coolest dude in the world. Yeah, nothing but respect, man. He was so cool.
Oh man, that's an amazing story. And again, it's weird because him being in Japan and really other than his time in WCW, he's such a legend. But
yeah,
he was, he wasn't here in the WWE universe at all. And he was kind of one of those guys that back then, when you wanted to look at people's work in Japan, it was the tape trading market.
Yeah.
He was just such a legend. And then here, I don't feel like you hear enough stories, honestly, about Jushin Liger. And that was such a cool story to hear about.
He's kind of like an unsung hero, to where like he's been around forever. He's worked almost everywhere. He's worked almost everybody. But he's just kind of, again, it's just, I don't know. He just flies under the radar somehow, but everybody across the board has that same like respect of that character and who he is and his work and everything. And it's just like, oh yeah, Liger. Yeah. He's in like a class of his own over here. But again, it's one of those, like, he's almost underrated, but everybody knows he's like a legend and so good and everything else. It's crazy. He's an anomaly, man. He's very cool.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick step away, 1 minute. We're going to run a commercial from Philly Sports Strips, and then we're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to continue our conversation with one Mr. Tyler Breeze.
Cool.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
All right, back here on the other side with Tyler Breeze. Make sure you guys check that out, by the way. Philly Sports Trips, doing a lot of really cool trips, following the Eagles around. But yeah, we just heard a phenomenal story about Jushin Liger. What is your favorite, if you have a favorite? Can you pinpoint a favorite feud or a favorite moment in that NXT experience before you got your call up to the main roster?
I would say everything leading up to our Fatal 4-Way match that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Fatal 4-Way is kind of one of those ones, like, I would put that on a pedestal to where I would go, if somebody ever like didn't watch wrestling and they wanted to kind of know what it's about, I would probably show them that match. Because I'm pretty convinced that they would think it was pretty cool. Or, again, if it was, somebody who'd never seen me work before, I'd go, this is what we do. And I think it's just one of those ones where, again, it was kind of the closest I've ever come to having like a match exactly how you wanted it. The crowd was exactly how we wanted it. It felt massive. I would still put that match up against any, Fatal 4-Way or match for that matter, in terms of the 4 people involved and the timing and everything else. I think it was just, that's the one for me.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't know and hasn't, go back and check it out. This was Adrian Neville, AKA Pac, Tyler Breeze, Sami Zayn, and Tyson Kidd, who is like, well, again, one of those guys is one of the most underrated workers.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it just so many matches that he put on were so phenomenal. But you eventually get your opportunity. You get your chance to go up to the main roster, and you work with Dolph Ziggler, who we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. And you had a lot of different, you had opportunities to work at WrestleMania and different things. What was your main roster? And I do want to dive obviously down into Breezango, because that is epic and legendary stuff with the Fashion Police and all different things you guys were doing. But how would you, when you look back at your run on the main roster, what was that opportunity like to come up there and work those different pay-per-views in front of some of those crazy crowds? I mean, as a fan, and that was the end game, do you stand there at WrestleMania and say, this is it? I did what I did it?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, man. Like, I always wanted to be a wrestler, and I always wanted to be in WWE. But I never really had kind of and again, people are very opinionated one way or another on this. I never really I never really had anything hanging on, like if I became WWE champion or if I ever won a championship. I kind of just went like, if it happens, it happens. It's cool, but I won't consider myself a failure or anything if I don't get to that point. You know what I mean? So going up there, obviously, a different ball game. Getting started, I think, my stuff with Dolph, I think was fun. I think there was still a lot more meat on the bone. But I worked him for like 6 months. We worked all around the world, man. I worked him in India. I worked him in openers that were like half an hour. I worked him everywhere. I literally worked him everywhere that we could ever go. European tours, almost everywhere. Pretty crazy. And I think I worked him on like Survivor Series maybe, which is like, it's crazy, man. It's one of the big pay-per-views. So going up there and again, kind of getting a taste of the main roster, it was pretty cool. And then I knew it's a matter of time. You know what I mean? Like, you can't stay hot forever, or you can't, just stay on top forever or do whatever. So eventually the cycle happens to where you're one of the ones waiting on the sidelines. And that's what we get paid for. You're sitting there waiting until they go, hey man, we need you today. And then you better be able to kill it. But you're just not gonna be booked all the time. So it was good at the beginning, a little short-lived. Then I saw that obviously I needed to kind of kick myself in the butt and get something going. So that was when I got the stuff with Dango going. And then again, that kind of took a whole nother turn, almost way bigger than we both anticipated, I think, with everything it turned into. And then again, just being a part of everything. I was on the main roster. I was in WWE for 11 years, and being on Raw and SmackDown for like 5, 6, I think. Traveling the world, being on 3 WrestleManias, 4 WrestleManias, Royal Rumble. Like, you kind of got to live the dream, man. It was everything that I grew up watching. So being a part of that and getting to do a lot of cool stuff, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because you spoke about the Breezango thing, right? And we were talking earlier about how when with Zoff, when he had that moment, when Kofi had that moment,
mm-hmm.
I remember you and Fandango going back down to NXT,
yep,
to help out with the ratings and help out with working some of the talent. And when you guys became tag team champions, that place went insane. And I remember social media went insane. It was a huge moment where it was, again, it's like, these guys have worked so hard. They deserve this moment.
Yeah.
And it became this huge phenomenon, the Breezango thing. So what was that like, getting to go back and work down in NXT again and have that kind of moment? It's like a full circle moment.
It was pretty cool. Me and Dango got to do a lot of cool stuff, to where like we started off as, just what you would expect, tagging up a model and a dancer. You know what I mean? We were just kind of, we were a good tag team, but there wasn't as much substance as you would think, putting us together right off the bat, until we kind of found the Fashion Files stuff.
The Fashion stuff was some of the best stuff.
To which, again, we kind of just struck gold at the right time, to where I remember Tyson Kidd told me, he goes, it's almost like, it's not like a backstage vignette or pre-tape or promo. He goes, it's like a play. It's like a little play that happens where like the graphic flashes and they say Fashion Files and everybody claps like a play's happening. Yeah. And then at the end they clap again. And he goes, I've never seen anything like it. And it was just one of those things where like even the writers, like they loved being a part of it. Everybody was very entertained. We really didn't wrestle a lot for like 8 months, to where they just wanted to see us on there doing our stupid antics and, paying homages to things and just giving you a breath of fresh air from the 2 or 3 hours of wrestling. And it really kind of, made us these lovable, characters that people were really wanting to see succeed, where I would even put us in the same category as like Santino, to where I loved Santino. I loved everything he did. I thought it was so creative, and he wrestled enough to let us know that he was still a wrestler, but all the other stuff, man, was the important stuff. And I think we really, we're in that same vein with the Fashion Files. And they were really, really kind of ready for us to, be their guys. And then it kind of just fizzled out. We kind of went back to, I think Dango actually got injured. So then I was on my own for a while, and I literally just went, man, like, okay, what do we do now? Like, what's the next step? And I remember, I think I got pretty bitter, and that was just, mostly like personal life and other stuff. It all just added up. Being on the road for a while obviously gets you. So I just kind of started getting like a real bad attitude and just going like, man, what do we do now? What's the next thing? So I believe I actually asked Triple H. I said, "Look, man, like clearly you don't need me here." He goes, "If you don't," I said, "If you don't need me, like either release me or I don't know, what's another option." And he goes, "Well, would you be open to going to NXT because I'd really prefer you there?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "That'd be great." So I went down there, kind of started like having some more fun as myself again and finding my feet. And then when Dango was ready, which I think was maybe like 6-ish months after, he came back to the big return. And I remember he'd been a part of NXT when it was a game show or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He'd never really gotten the feel of what we got coming up through the NXT.
Mhm.
And so when he came back and like we had the little reunion. And when we went to the back that night, I remember him looking at me and going, "Man, I think that's like the best reaction I've ever gotten." And he's like, "I think that was the most fun like I've ever just had doing something." And I said, "Yeah, man, this is like NXT's fun, dude."
Yeah.
And he got like kind of reinvigorated to where he was pumped. So then now, obviously they kept the entertainment aspect to us with all the different entrances and stuff, but now they let us do the other part as well, which was have these matches that people didn't really get that part on Raw and SmackDown. They just got the Fashion Files, but they didn't get those really like those matches they could dig their feet into. And so finally, again, we started doing what they wanted us to do, have these matches. And then I remember they told us like, "Hey man, you guys are winning the NXT titles." And I said, "Cool, great." Like that's, cool, man. And like you said, people were, it was just kind of like they were excited for it because they went, "Finally, man, finally, these guys got something." And I remember like, Dango was happy. I was happy. It was just cool.
Yeah, it was a great moment. And it's funny you mentioned Santino and you mentioned Fandango right now, who are kind of working a little program themselves over on
That's
it.
right.
It's been very entertaining. It's almost been a kind of a loose version of, with the Fashion Files and the things you would see originally, how it started with him and Santino. So that's going to be really interesting. If anybody's around again, check out Impact Anniversary tonight and see how that concludes. Yeah, so I mean that was a fun time. It was great to see you guys come back. So eventually you step away from WWE. You guys part ways. You took a little bit of time for yourself and up, down, down, man. Like what an entertaining show, and watching all of you guys work together. Can you tell us about that? Tell us what that experience is like.
It's the coolest, man. It really is. Like it's stuff that we would be doing anyway. But now it's and this is where like Woods is he's taught me so much and like just so smart when it comes to things. So, obviously everybody knows, like, again, I was kind of informed when I got into wrestling, like, you're not going to be wrestling forever. If you're an athlete, you're going to wrestle for a certain amount of time. And then, you're either going to be less useful or you're going to be really sore and you're not going to want to do this anymore. So what's left after that? And Woods on the other side of that was like, all right, he goes, I get that. So what can we do after we're done wrestling? And obviously, me and him, we lived together and we were friends and everything else. And we both loved playing games and we've just always been into that kind of aspect. And so now I think Up Up Down has been around for 8 years. And he just started, he was like, you know what? Let's just start like filming stuff and then use WWE to where they have a big following, obviously. And they have a YouTube channel and they have everything else. And he's like, all right, if I make a YouTube channel for gaming, because they really don't have any gaming things there. And he goes, I can kind of spearhead that. And he goes, that makes us valuable because now we're creating value outside of the ring. And again, it's stuff that wrestling and gaming kind of go hand in hand. Like a lot of people who like one, they probably like both. So once we started kind of doing, just some random stuff. Like I think it was Battle of the Brands is one of our main things on Up Up Down Down, but that was kind of our, we like playing this anyway. Let's just do it and see if anybody cares about it. And they did. And now, it's a main feature in the WWE game, to where like, again, it's just, you're creating value and making yourself more valuable, in the company, but also outside of the company, to where you don't have to ever step in a wrestling ring and we can still generate money and we can make money and we can add to our personalities to where they know who Tyler Breeze is in the ring. They know who Xavier Woods is in the ring, but what do they do in their off time? What do they do in their day-to-day life? We know they're friends, but maybe they never get written into a storyline together. So how do they talk to each other? And all of a sudden, like, they see that interaction, and that is fascinating to people, to where they go, oh man, like, okay, well, what is this person like? And what is this person like? And oh, they're actually really good at games. And what about this game? And what about this? And you know what I mean? Like, it's getting the chance to, even if we do a live stream, be in the chat room and talk to us, and we're talking back to you. It's like people love that. They love that you're accessible, and they love, getting your take on stuff. And they, again, you kind of take for granted where people go, to us, it's just, we're two idiots playing video games, but to people it's, oh man, we watch them on TV, and these are, we like these people a lot, and we'd pay tickets to see this person or whatever, and now you're watching them on a weekly basis or talking to them. So it's a lot bigger than I guess you think in your head, and you kind of just give into what that is. But the fact that Up Up Down Down has, again, grown into what it is, and kind of made us into something way bigger than wrestling could have on its own. And again, just kind of now adds to the portfolio of what you bring to the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we mentioned breaking ground earlier, right? Reality TV, and people love to have the curtain pulled back and see.
That's right.
Right? So, in a very different way, it is almost like it's a reality entertainment program. Watching you guys, and like you said, like, even somebody like Claudio, when you guys are all on there and seeing the side of somebody's personality that you never got to really see, and seeing you guys all interact with guys like Adam Cole, and it's just it is very fun. And I think like Twitch and all that stuff that's come around has been so big, and that's a lot of what we do here, right? So we have Philadelphia Pro Athletes who do shows all here on our platform, and it's the same thing they're saying, right? It's an opportunity to get their take on things and have them respond to a comment, right? Which is really cool. It's next level. And you guys were like the perfect group to put this show together because of how charismatic you guys are. And somebody actually, I think it might have been Daniel Bakley. Somebody asked, how did you and Woods become friends? Because your personalities together is very clear, and you've mentioned him quite a bit on this program. Yeah, Daniel Bakley said, how did you and Xavier become close friends? You guys are hilarious together. So can you tell us about like when you and Woods kind of first got to know each other?
Yeah, so it was kind of just coincidence or a little bit of happenstance. So when I came down to FCW, the first match that I ever had was on a live event. It was a triple threat match with myself, Woods, and Seth. And so I remember, like, I was like, nothing. I was just an early guy who just kind of went like, all right, like, let's just get along here. Let's not, rock the boat. Seth, I knew, was in Ring of Honor. I knew that he kind of had like a name. Woods, I knew was in TNA, to where, again, it's like, wow, these guys are like, they're name guys. They've been around. They know their stuff. Where, as I found out later, Woods was like, no, like, I happened to be in there, but like, yeah, I didn't know as much as you think I know, and blah, blah, blah. So I just remember thinking like, okay, I just gotta, if I can hang with these guys, then I'll be okay. And we ended up having this fun match, and I came to the back, and I was just kind of like, hey man, thanks. That was really cool. And I think I asked him a couple questions about TNA. And then like, we kind of just, you could tell that like he was just kind of like a cool dude. So a couple little comments here and there, started talking, and then like just being around each other every day in FCW, you just kind of like, oh, you like this? Yeah, I like that too. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And you just slowly build, a relationship with your friends, of being around these guys day after day. And we just had so many things in common, to where I think we started to, when was it? I know that we were already friends. Like, we started to become really good friends. I think we were both injured at the same time. And we just started playing a game online together. And we just like, we'd wake up in the morning and we'd have breakfast and we'd toss on our headsets and we'd play this game for like hours and hours and hours. And that was kind of like the bonding, moment. And then from then on, then it was like, we were trying to be a tag team, and then we lived together, and then like, it just kind of went where it was going to go. But it just kind of, everything clicked, and then it just clicked more and then more and more. And, now he's one of my best friends. So it just kind of, I don't know, just a natural friendship that just kind of rolls into everything. And again, it's just, you can see from how we are, like, even if the cameras aren't on, that's just how we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's natural, not organic. It is very natural. The interactions that you guys have. And obviously people really enjoy seeing that side. Couple last few things here. You're back in the ring, working.
Yeah.
You're the NGW champion. What's it like, man, being back in the ring after your hiatus?
it's pretty cool, man. So like I never really planned on taking 2 years off, but after, doing this for 15 years and being in WWE for 11 years, to where I really didn't take any time off. I was lucky. I didn't have any surgeries. I took care of myself pretty good. But I was on the road going. So when I finally got that call, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to chill for a little bit. And then I really liked it. And then I liked being home. And then all of a sudden I went, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing this. And then it was like a year turned into 2 years. And I kind of, I still got to scratch the wrestling itch a little bit with flatbacks, with training people. But I wasn't really missing like being on the road at all. I really liked being home. I liked waking up in my bed and making breakfast and, just typical stuff that, people take for granted that I never got to do. So again, I was in no real hurry. I was like, if something happens, like if something pops up that could be really fun, maybe I'll do. But really, for the most part, I wasn't against it, but I wasn't missing it. And then it just so happens that Spears, who I train with, he went, hey, I need an opponent for a match. Would you want to do it? And I said, sure, I could do that. So I was like, well, I'll do one. And then that same promoter was like, oh, would you also like to do this show and this show? And I went, yeah, might as well. Why not?
Yeah.
So then somebody saw that. So then all of a sudden they offered me. And then all of a sudden my September's full of bookings and everything else. And I went, all right, I guess I'm back here. So then it was, kick into high gear to get new music, new gear, get in shape, all that stuff. So yeah, we had our my first booking was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And yeah, it was fun, man. It's the thing that you always, and I think it's the reason why we do this, or why people have a hard time stepping away, is the crowd. The crowd is always like, it's just so fun. Like wrestling is never the problem. Like if people get entitled or they get egos or they get whatever, the wrestling part is never the problem. The wrestling and the crowd is why we do it. It's so fun, man. So being back in front of them, very cool. I'm excited to take more bookings and kind of get back out there. And, again, it's been 2 years. So jumping back in there, it feels a little bit fresh and it feels fun, and, I'm enjoying it. So
Do you think there's a chance where you may look to go on a larger scale with something around the AEW or WWE thing? Or you have your feet in a lot of different things right now. So maybe just doing it this way is what works for you too. But do you see that as possibly an opportunity? We might see you back in like WWE or over in AEW or Impact?
I think it's possible. I think like I definitely, wouldn't say that I'm retired or like, not or opposed to any of that.
Right.
Obviously I'm still young, I'm still athletic. I still do all the stuff that I did before. I think if the right opportunity popped up and, talk to the right people and everything lined up, I'd go, yeah, cool. Why not? But I'm not, actively seeking it either. I think it's just kind of, I like everything that's going on right now. I'm very, very happy with everything that's going on. If something popped up that could add to that happiness, fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to whatever.
Yeah, I love that. And so everybody keep an eye out. Let's see where we see him at. Maybe we'll get you over at the arena at some point for one of these battleground shows. I'd love to see it. Very
possible. Who knows, man?
So my last question here, and this is more of a personal one here. We have a mutual friend, Mike. We have mutual friends, Mike and Brittany, which we've established before. And I need a true or false on this. Mike has told me when you guys were neighbors that he would set his Christmas lights to play to your entrance music so that they would flash whenever you would be outside. Is this a true or a false story?
Oh, that's very true. And it doesn't even just stop with the lights there. It's he had that song ready to go at like the drop of a hat. So if we were going over there, or I happened to see him, or you're watering the lawn and all of a sudden I hear the music and I go, come on, man. And he's just smiling away, loving it. So yeah, he definitely had that saved ready to go at a moment's notice.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. He told me that story, and I was dying. It's him. I've known him. We grew up in the same neighborhood.
That's right.
Together. I was in his wedding, and when he told me that story, I said, ask me if I'm surprised, dude. Like, of course he did that. But
yep, he's creative, man. He's creative.
Flatbacks. Anybody who's interested in pursuing a wrestling career and maybe would want to check out your school, where can they find you guys at?
All the information is at flatbackswrestlingschool.com. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. I believe I have the links on my Instagram, which is gorgeous with 3 M's. But it's not hard to find too. If you look up Flatbacks, you'll find everything you need.
Awesome. Yeah. And obviously check out Up, Up, Down, Down. If you get an opportunity to go out and see Tyler here in his return, make sure you guys go grab some tickets and go and check him out. It's really exciting that you're back, man. And we appreciate the time that you took for us here today. And really good luck to you going forward, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No, it was a pleasure. Take it easy.
You too, man.
Thanks, bud. So for us here, we're going to pay a few bills here. Specialized Physical Therapy. Find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No appointment necessary. Check out our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal. And obviously, Philly Sports Trips. Make sure you guys are checking them out. phillysportstrips.com. Make sure you Hollis Thomas is a part of this. There's going to be other Philadelphia Eagles that are going to be joining those special trips. So for myself, thank you to Frank. Thank you to Ralph on the back end. And thank you to Mr. Tyler Breeze here. Great show. And we have other things possibly on the horizon as well. So, and go back and check out our Rich Swann interview as well. He's got a big event here tonight. It's called Slammiversary. Check it out, Impact Slammiversary. For myself, for Tyler, Ralph, Frank, and everybody at 2D Radio. Give somebody a hug, tell them you love them, and have a great night.